and the job had come out for the Vice Unit, which is one of the best detective posts. It was brilliant, in the Met, right? So that had come out, Savile had come out, and again, it was like everyone wanted this job. It was dealing with prostitutes, casinos. Mate, it's just fantastic. Everything dirty and sticky you dealt with on that, and there was money in it, and it was a lot of it was night, so I could get home. It was just perfect. It was always, the synchronicity was amazing. But in the meantime, they put me on a special operations unit, right? So it's the nearest thing the police ever got to sort of paramilitary, I suppose. And I was working on this rapid response maritime special ops unit, and we were linked in with the SBS. We used to do operations with them.
What's the SBS?
The Special Boat Squadron with the Marines. So we'd do joint operations with them, intercepting boats at the high sea and speed roping onto boats. And it was a police unit which was totally outside really of what the police should be doing, And a lot of it was unofficial. And we would climb up these big container ships and jump off the back of them, be picked up by a river in the darkness of night, and it was all mad stuff, totally mental. But it weren't me, it wasn't me. And they did a joint operation. It shows how you can't, it's like mixing oil and water, the military and the civilian police. So they did an operation where a ship they said it'd been hijacked, whether it had or not, I don't know, and it was on its way to London, and it was on the Isle of Wight, and they said, right, we're going to hit it. So we get a call middle of the night, right, you're going to get picked up, we're going to have to, there was a small group of us, we had these fast ribs that did 70 knots, we had a coxswain on ours, which he'd come from the SBS, this guy, he was a coxswain for the SBS, and he was the best rib driver in the world. This guy was just incredible, hard as anything. And we were to get this unit, we were to make our way from London towards the Isle of Wight. Met police, armed. I weren't armed, but there was with dogs, everything. Dogs. The dog team was going as well on these boats. There was a flotilla of these boats that did like 60, 70 knots. And at the same time, the Royal Marines, Poole, their SBS unit was coming from Poole, and we were going to hit it at the same time. But I think they decided not to use boats, they decided to use helicopters. So they got there first to get the glory. And when they landed, they chinned every single person on the boat, broke their jaw. So they just went in and just chinned them all.
Jeez.
And then they plastic cuffed them like near naked and laid them on the deck in the middle of winter, and the blokes were nearly freezing to death, and they were like, these are Filipinos. And they'd shot all the doors out with these big baton rounds, so they blasted the doors. The boat was just ruined. There was a massive payout over it, and these poor whatever they were, like deckhands, just all had their jaws broken. Everyone got, so they never ever did a joint, because it's just two different things. But I thought, I can't be here. But this job had come out, and the same guy that put me on this unit, he said, look, you put him for a job? And I went, yeah. And he went, where's the ad? So I showed him the ad in the magazine, and on the bottom of it, it's got the inspector who's in charge. So he went, I know him. He's in my lodge. Right, so this is how Freemasonry works in the police. All this conspiracy about Freemasonry it's got a massive, I don't know if it has now, but back then it had a massive influence. It did, And when they have their lodge meetings, which I don't know the frequency of them, but usually on a Thursday or a Wednesday, there'd be no one in the CID department, and their meetings would start like about 5 o'clock. So from about 3 o'clock onwards, there'd be no one there. There'll be a Masonic lodge meeting. It'd just be empty. Just be me and my mate sat there, and have to deal with it all. And that's how. Anyway, so he went, he's in my lodge, that inspector. I rings him up, puts it on loudspeaker, and then he turns around and he said, all right, brother. He said, got a lad here, a really good lad, wants to go for his job. And I wasn't qualified for it. And he went, is he all right? He said, best you're going to get, I didn't have the right qualification. I wasn't properly signed up detective by that time. I did later get that, and he went, right, bit of a tough selection for this. And he said, he needs to know these questions. And I'd have never passed it if I didn't know. And he then read out every single question I'm going to be asked with the answer.
Really?
So if he does that, he'll get 100%. And of course I did. I passed with 100% with a recommendation that I get a job from a mason. So I got the job, you know. I don't know why the bar was so high, because you know, they weren't the elite like I thought they were.
Yeah.
But the job was just amazing. It was just frenetic. It was street work. It was violent. It was just crazy. It was crazy stuff. And it reminded me of this Serpico film out in the streets of New York. It was all in the rough parts of London. Just what they call bouncing drug dealers and prostitutes, really, just bringing them in. And they were a sad bunch, right? But just in parallel, you'd raid brothels. But the girls who worked in brothels, I didn't like them. They called them brasses. We called them Toms. Thomas More Whore. Toms.
Yeah.
They call it a brass house, don't they? We call them Tom houses. And the ones in brothels were devious people, to be honest, because a lot of them women, they were married and they had kids and all that, and they would tell their husbands and that they were hairdressers. Really? And they were working. Yeah, it was quite horrible, because if you was married to, you know, you think your missus without earning good money is a good act. She weren't. She was working in a brothel. But the ones on the street, they were heroin addicts.
Yeah.
And they'd all come from care homes. They'd all come from child abuse, sexual abuse. They were addicted to heroin and crack, and I had heart for them.
Yeah.
They got beaten up. They got murdered. One of them, she'd actually escaped from Peter Sutcliffe. She'd come down from Leeds, but he'd abducted her, the Yorkshire Ripper, and he'd wrapped her up in carpet.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. And she went, "What's so funny about that?" I thought that was like a joke, that they wrapped dead bodies up in carpet, but he did. He wrapped her up.
Really?
And she survived. Hammer blows.
Just didn't die, so she proper beaten and...
Yeah, smashed her head in with a hammer, and she survived, and she ended up working on the streets of London. And you know, but the stories were just awful. They'd all been abused as kids.
Because he killed a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. 13, I think he killed.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and very demonic guy. So what I started doing was working them as informants.
Yeah.
Because no one bothered, but I did. That was my thing. So I started getting them working for me. And the thing is, when you start working with informants, you sort of get left alone, and it becomes a secret, right? Yeah. And no one knows what you're doing, but you're allowed to do it. You've got to get sanctioned, and you've got to be properly trained for it, but you end up working in a group within a group, and no one knows. And I liked all that, you know, and I'd get sent off, and I did so well at it, the National Crime Squad started using me to recruit people in prison, organised criminals. So I started getting used to recruit the Turkish mafia.
Okay.
And I started being sent to all these prisons. So I'd come into work one day, and my boss would say, "Yeah, right, we're going out on a brothel raid or whatever." And then I'd get a message through, "No, you're needed. Get on the train, go to Euston, you're needed in Glasgow." And there's nothing they could do to stop me, and I loved it, you know.
And how would that work in prison then? How would you...
You'd plan a legal visit. You'd go in as a solicitor.
Okay.
And that's how you dealt with it, going as a solicitor. There'd be nothing police about you, you know, and you could have some pseudonym name or a solicitor's firm, and then you're sitting there. And but it was dangerous, you know. It was really, really dangerous, but it was just amazing, really. And it made me realise that all these gangsters all grass each other.
Yeah. They
grass each other. These podcasts, right, the genre now is criminals, right? I don't mind that if there's an element of repentance that's attached to it.
People that want to now help and...
Yeah, but laughing about crimes and all that and going, "Oh yeah, he was a grass." They were all grasses from my experience. And there's one, I'm not going to say his name, but all rumours about grassing, and I'm thinking, I know these because I worked in that world, you know. Anyway, I won't say anymore. I don't know, you know, because it was quite a dangerous game. But one of the girls said to me, "Look, John, if you turn up on a Thursday night in them bushes, I'll come on to texting in a minute because it's quite interesting what came out of that, and I'm happily talk about it because the guy's dead, but and it won't come back on you or anything. But there's a film out at the moment that's all about this, and he said there's a little girl there, and you got to get her off the streets. She's being pimped out, and she's only young. Anyway, so I turned up and found this girl, and she was about that big, skinny, on heroin. She had AIDS. She was young. She was a kid. She was 13, whatever. And men were picking her up. And I get her and I throw her in the car. And I say, Rob, take her off. She's going to put her in protective custody. She's a danger to herself. She needs help. And then I get a call through from my supervisor, get rid of her. I said, no, I'm going to get social services, have a meeting, and she needs putting in a secure unit. No, she's got scabies, and she's got TB, and she'll just dirty the car. You'll get TB, you'll get scabies off her, throw her out, get rid of her. And that was her attitude, right? Singing, joking. Then another little girl, I get information, and she's been put into a secure unit in Cambridge, and I get told, go and see her. So I go and see this little girl, and she's smaller. She's like that big, tiny little thing, and she's cocky and mouthy, but she's a kid, and she's had a tough life. Her mum's a heroin addict, and she's been pimped out. So she said, look, I'm not lying, I've been telling the police I've been pimped out, and there's loads of us, and we're getting picked up by a woman. This woman's working with the police. She knows all you lot. She's a prostitute. She gave me her name. Follow her. She's the one getting us girls, and they take us to big posh houses or crack houses, or they'll be taken to hotels, big restaurants, and sometimes she gets £2,000 for me. But there's other girls, and she's got like an enforcer who's a Jamaican drug dealer that the police know about. So all this thing about, and not decrying it, does go on, but Muslim grooming gangs, they're not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that have the monopoly on this. 80% of all trafficking of children and sexual abuse of children goes on in the home. It's mothers and stepfathers that are doing it, yeah. If the presence of a step parent, mainly a stepfather, will cause your child 30 times more likely, 30 times more likely to be sexually abused than a Kashmiri taxi driver or whatever. I'm not saying they don't do it, they do it, and the government does cover it up. And anyone who exposes it, God bless you, you're doing God's work, well done. And there is a need to put it on them because there's a bigger thing going on. But 8% of all that level of crime is in the home.
Wow.
And it's mothers not protecting their kids, it's fathers being absent. This baby father culture is disgusting, it's disgraceful. It started off mainly in the Caribbean community, and now it's spread everywhere else, and it's trendy to baby father, baby mother. Most appalling terminology I've ever had. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Man, if you want to be the lions, then don't sod off and leave your kids. And I call them out. Don't leave your kids, because I ain't a lion letting your children be abused by another lion. No. And lionesses, protect your cubs. It's something very passionate about, and I'll get into the relevance of all of this, and also linking with these criminal podcasts, how this all sort of connecting. So I believe this girl, and I go back, and my bosses say she's a liar, she's a little liar, I write it off, and I didn't. So I made it official, and I officially interviewed her, and there's a whole bigger story around that. And so she does her little things, we get that, we start looking into this, me and another girl, and it's all a bit unofficial. And then we get the name of another girl, so we go and see this other girl. She's even smaller. She's like, well, that one was there. This girl looks like a possum, big eyes like that, pretty little girl, like mixed racy. Again, all different races, colours, everything, right? Boys as well were involved in this, so not just one genre. There was, and she's on crack, she's on heroin, she's on this this trafficking, pimping, prostitute, whatever you want to call it thing, right? She says exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. So I was like, oh, right. She said, John, there's another girl. I want you. So she gives me the name of another girl. And in the end, we're flooded, right? We are literally flooded. So we start working with the social workers because they trust us. And they started then not bothering to refer it properly. They would ring us direct. We've had a kid go missing.
Yeah.
She's been picked up. John, she's on the street. She's, you know, and we go and find them, proactively find them. No one had ever bothered doing this.
Yeah.
Right. So the police said it didn't exist. And within such a short period of time, we got like 36 kids. But it's heavy organised criminality. Heavy. You know, these kids were taken to crack houses run by Jamaican boys, and there was guns and firearms, and there was threats to the girls if they said anything, you know.
Yeah.
There was a white woman running it, and there was rumours that she was having sexual relationships with police officers. We then had information come in that there was actually a police officer at Paddington police station was working with this prostitute, pimping these girls out. He was doing it and he was delivering them. And whenever stuff went before the custody at Paddington, he was amending it so it didn't go right. And then we get information that a judge is involved. So when cases go before a judge, he sorts it out at that end. And then we get information that someone in the BBC is involved, and it's going back. This thing is just
taking off.
Yeah, we can't keep up with it. And we both started suffering, me and my partner, my work partner. We were alcoholics. Let's say it as it is, you know, that's how we dealt with it. You know, it was so hard on us. It was heartbreaking. She would just break down in tears all the time. John, these kids die, it's down to us. Because the police wasn't backing us up. So something happened to these kids, it was down to us.
Yeah.
You know, the duty of care stopped with us. And these girls were running away from kids' homes and they were going back on the street, but they're giving us info and statements, so they're now informants. You know, and so there's these big tough yardie men and all that, not only threatening to kill these little girls, we're having sex with them. So we never hear of this, you know. And there was a woman, she was having sex with them as well. A woman, we don't hear of women paedophiles.
No.
And as well as police officers, as well as judges and all that. So I said to her, look, if we don't make this officially write this down, we're in trouble here. This has got to go on paper, so there's a record, so they know. The thing is, it's a duty of care, give it to them. They're going to attack you for it, but they got to do something about it. So I wrote a report, and I had a friend, was an undercover officer, right? He'd become an author, and he had the IQ of a genius. He was the cleverest guy I've ever met, right? But he was like a street lad, but he was just so intelligent. He now runs a brilliant business in Africa, helping animals and that. He's just an amazing guy. And I said to him, look, listen, can you write this report? Because he was the most well-read person I've ever met. And he wrote this report. It was like Shakespeare had written it, like with a quill. It was just brilliant, right? It was concise, unambiguous, and it was factual.
Yeah.
It was there. So he writes this report, I submit it, and then the next thing, that's it, boom, I'm dragged up to the big office, right, with the big bosses there, and they're like, no way is this going to be a process. You can't put this down. What the F have you done? And then I get attacked, and I get told by a very, very senior officer, if you mention a word of this, he said, that's us finished. That's us finished. Past, present, and future. This can never get out. He said, have you any idea who you're dealing with here? And of course I didn't. But like the contents of Johnny Cooper's book, The Great Reveal, we were dealing with high up stuff, which we're seeing now coming out in the Epstein inquiry and all this. We're seeing this stuff coming out. This goes high, and it came out in the independent inquiry that the government run. This was high up paedophilia. But we didn't know, you know, and I knew that corruption, conspiracies existed because of my previous job. Only a year previous, may I add, right? So I'm now sitting there thinking, what's going on here? And then he said, I will guarantee you will lose your home, your job and your children. A very high up officer. If you ever mention this, you need to effing shut up. He said, you'll be thrown to the walls, John. You've no understanding. the trouble this is going to cause you. You will lose everything. He said, now F off. And he said, if you ever mention that I bullied you or whatever, he said, no one will back you up. We will all stand together. He said, you ain't going to win. But he was pleading with me. At the same time as attacking me, he was pleading with me because I was very well respected.
Yeah.
You know, and he was like saying, for fuck's sake, don't do it, don't go there, because your kids are going into care and you'll get prison and all this sort of thing. That's what he was implying. And I went, I can't work for you anymore. And he said something to me. He went, pick a job, you'll get it. Any job. Second time this happened. So is this some sort of sick joke? Honestly, I couldn't believe it. And I went, well, I ain't work for you, but I want to work with kids. He went, John, you ever uncover anything like this? He said, I can't stress it enough. Time to shut your mouth. Right? And he went, where do you want to go? I want child protection. He went, yeah, all right. Start Monday. So I end up getting sent to a child protection unit investigating crimes against children. And I'll get to the Turkish mafia thing in a minute, right? Because that was quite entertaining, that. And I end up getting sent to Haringey, Tottenham. And my first day there, I said to one of the officers, I said to one of the senior officers, is there any child prostitution going on there? No. But we've got the most kids' homes, and we're one of the most impoverished places in the UK. For child abuse, we're the busiest unit.
Yeah.
And she went, no, there's no. She said, but there is a job that you'll go to meetings about, this thing with child prostitutes, but there ain't any. So don't bother looking for it. So I went, well, can I have that job? She went, yeah, all right. So they gave me this role of going to these meetings. She said, oh, it's easy, you go to a meeting, you go home. The last girl, she's on maternity leave. She did it for 2 years, one case. So I get the list of the kids' homes, right, seconds after being told this, and I just get the phone, boom, 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 bring up the first kid's home, and say, look, this is who I am. How many kids you got? The guy went, 5. How many of them been pimped out on the weekend? He went, 3 of them. I went, serious? He went, no, 3 of them. When you joking me, he went, no. I said, what happens? He went, car picks them up Thursday night, takes them off, and that's it. We report it to police, they do nothing. Gets reported to missing person, social service, they do nothing. Kid comes back, so what's the point of doing anything? Kid comes back usually Monday, Tuesday morning, usually in a total state from drugs or sexual injuries, and they kick off because they ain't got their drugs, and we put up with it for 2 days, then it starts again. I went, cheers mate. And so I rang up next home, same thing. They had 6 kids, 5 of them were being pimped out, 5 boys as well. And within just the end of that week, I'd found 52 kids. So I held a meeting, and I brought all social services, all these non-government agencies that came to look after kids, putting kids first and all that. Absolute waste of time. Don't ever give money to these people. They're tossers. And the leading kids charity, there's 2. There was a representative from the main one. I won't name it. I did the government know, because in the independent inquiry I gave the details over. But the government tried to cover it all up. That's why I won't name it, you know, because they redlined it. Anyway, the woman that's in charge of child exploitation for this main charity, when I read out what was going on with these kids, she went, no, you need to shut your mouth, back off, and threaten me. She said, I'm connected to people high up Scotland Yard. I'm going to guarantee that you'll never work in this area again. And she did her best. Leading kids charity.
Wow.
And it was all buried. But what happened then was that 2 of the kids from the first inquiry, we'd actually nicked people and they were on bail. And so we had 36 victims for this case. The CPS threw 34 of the victims out, leaving 2. They were both murdered. Yeah, both murdered. Both kids ended up dying. Suspicious deaths, both of them. So it was covered up.
Wow.
Covered up, massively covered up.